Really lovely to see you this morning. Welcome to this introductory webinar, which is aiming to tell you a little bit about Challenge Partners and how we would love to work with you in the coming year to support school improvement and CPD for you and your staff. It is, as you can see, a very small group, and in any case, I don't really like doing the sort of big formal presentations. I'm much happier in a conversation. So if you have any questions as we go through, do feel free. I mean, we're a small enough group, you can just unmute yourself, to be honest, but if you're more comfortable putting things in the chat, you can also do that, and we can make this a conversation as much as you like as we go through. And what you'll find if you join Challenge Partners is that is very typical of the way that we operate. We've just had our annual conference, which inevitably had to be online. But in contrast with some other organisations that have gone for kind of very formal conference platforms, we organised ours as an enormous Zoom meeting with over 400 people there, you know, using breakout rooms, using the chat, interacting, because what Challenge Partners is really about is providing a forum in which you can collaborate with your peers, learning with them, from them, alongside them. So all of that collaboration is absolutely central to what we do. So you can make this event as much of a Challenge Partners event as you feel like by participating as we go along. Just to start with introductions, I'm Kate Chhatwal. I've been CEO of Challenge Partners for 3 years. I think head teacher is probably the best job in the world. This is probably the second best job in the world because I get to work with really fantastic head teachers from across the country doing really exciting and innovative things in their school to, you know, change life chances for children. Alongside me this morning is Johnny Goggs, who will be doing the tech and also sending follow-up information. Johnny does far more than that for Challenge Partners, but that's his role this morning. So just to start at the beginning about, you know, what Challenge Partners is all about, why are we here? It is because we want to ultimately make the world a better place. And we think a really good way to do that is to ensure that more children and young people get a really great education, and particularly by focusing on closing disadvantage gaps, but also thinking about how we improve the life chances of all children. So, you know, education, I guess, as it is for many of you, is the vehicle by which we change individual life chances, society, and the world as a whole. And I think, you know, we've got an opportunity to do that together now more than ever as we come out of the pandemic, to think about how we work together to create better futures. So that feeds through to our mission, which, Sarah, would you mind just muting, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Do, of course, feel free to unmute to engage in conversation, but just the feedback's a bit distracting. Our mission here on the screen is around reducing educational inequality, as I've said, and improving life chances for all children. And the way that we do that is through facilitating collaboration, challenge, and professional developments amongst a really broad and diverse network of schools that stretches from Cornwall right up to County Durham. And by working with all of those schools, what we're trying to do is ensure that great practice becomes common practice across the system, that it doesn't get locked in individual classrooms or individual schools, but that every community can benefit from the combined wisdom of the whole system. And as I imagine all of you do within your schools, we've got a set of values across Challenge Partners that guide the way that we work with each other within the network. And I think of them as a series of pairs, really. So excellence and equity go hand in hand, because what we're driving for is excellence across the education system. And we don't think that that's a zero-sum game. We don't think that because one school gets better, another has to get worse. And we also think that it's really important that excellence is for everybody within the system, which is why it's coupled with that principle of equity, which is very much linked to reducing educational inequality and recognising that there are some children and young people within our schools who need our support and collective wisdom more than others. And we want to have a really sharp focus on those. The other pair is around collaboration and challenge, because as I've said, all that we do in Challenge Partners is around bringing together the expert practitioners that we have in the network to work together to drive improvement in the system. And we do want that to be, of course, friendly, professional, respectful collaboration, but also purposeful, and to have that really hard edge where practitioners across the network are comfortable having those really challenging conversations in the interests of children, where they think that things aren't working, where practice could be improved, so that together we're exercising a collective accountability to and for each other to drive improvement across the system. Then the other couple of values there, innovation, as you might imagine, and as I'm sure it has in your own schools, has come into its own over the last year, but we've always been an innovative organisation, continually improving and developing new ways of securing improvement across the education system, but always in a very disciplined way. So we do make sure that we evaluate the things that we're doing to ensure that they're effective before rolling them out further. And then finally, courageous leadership. As a network that has over 500 schools in it, including many of the highest performing schools in the country, we want to be playing a role in shaping the debate around education, not just responding to what's coming out of government. So those are the values that drive us. I'm quite a visual learner, and so I really, really love this representation of what Challenge Partners is all about. And what we're showing here is that, if you were to capture our mission in a graph, this is what it would look like, because what we want is for all schools, regardless of their starting point, to improve continuously. We do want the schools that are underperforming to improve at the fastest rate, but we also think that, the education system suffers if we don't nurture high-performing schools and stimulate them to rise even higher. And if you're successful at doing both of those things, of growing the top and reducing that disparity, tackling underperformance, what you get is upwards convergence across the system, which is really important if we want to be a world-class education system, which is something that, governments of all colours have talked about for many years. But actually, and I say this as a former civil servant, governments tend to focus on the bottom. They don't really pay much attention to the top, and I think the system suffers because of that. As well as our 6 values, there are 5 principles that are really important to Challenge Partners and define very much the type of organisation that we are and the way that we work. These have been developed over 20 years. Challenge Partners itself has been going for 10 years as a charity, but many of the practitioners that founded Challenge Partners in 2011 had previously been involved in the London Challenge programme and other improvement programmes, and brought the methodology that they'd worked with there into Challenge Partners. And so the kind of first principle, which is absolutely crucial to us and is something that I spend a lot of time inducting new staff into, as well as new schools who join us, is that we are very much a practitioner-led organisation. Within the central team, we only have about 20 staff, and our job is to facilitate the collaboration and sharing of expertise amongst the practitioners in the network. I'm not interested in bringing great teachers and great leaders into the Challenge Partners central team, because I think you're best off in schools making a difference to children's life chances. But what we do want to do is make sure that we're harvesting and sharing your expertise. So what we do is provide a means of doing that whilst enabling you to remain in your schools. What it does mean is that we consult those schools that are in our network very frequently. We are constantly asking for feedback, which shapes what we do. Every new programme, initiative, activity that we launch is developed and implemented hand in hand with practitioners from our network. And that just means that it stays really relevant to the challenges that are live for practitioners for schools now. As I've said, we're about sharing and improving best practice within the system to make sure that becomes common practice. And we also try and balance being a really powerful and strongly connected national network with being a kind of set of local partnerships, because we recognise the importance of place in making a difference to communities and, you know, the life chances within a locality. We are about effective and sustainable solutions. So you want a quick fix, Challenge Partners probably isn't the organisation for you. If you want something that's about enduring improvement over many years, then Challenge Partners certainly is the organisation for you. And then finally, that last principle there, we do think that a lot of the expertise already lies within the education sector, and we want to extract that and share it as best we can. But we also recognise that there are things that we can learn from business and from other sectors. So just as we are encouraging the schools within our network to be outward looking, we as an organisation are also outward looking and look to other sectors for ideas and innovation that we can share with all of you. This just gives you a bit of a sense of the spread of Challenge Partners, representing over 250,000 pupils in over 500 schools. And as I said, in 44 local hubs that stretch the length and breadth of the country there, as you can see. So having kind of given you a bit of the why, you know, what are we here for at Challenge Partners? You know, what is this collective endeavour that we're hoping that you're going to join us in 21-22? What I'm going to talk about now is a bit more of the kind of practicality of it all. And there are two ways that you can come and be a partner within Challenge Partners. At the top there, you'll see that for the greatest benefits and the biggest impact on your school and school improvement, we would very much recommend that you join us as full partners. And I will come on to talk about what are the key components of full partnership. But if you're not yet ready to join us as full partners, there is the option to join us as network partner. And you can kind of see by the balance of text there, even if you don't read all of the detail, that clearly as a full partner, you get many more benefits, you know, but we think that network partners is a stepping stone to greater engagement in the network and a way to secure immediate benefits for your school and your staff. So regardless of whether you join us as a full partner or as a network partner, you will become part of our national network of excellence, which gives you that opportunity to learn with and from peers and experts across the country and also beyond. And there have been benefits in the last year, and one of them has been that ability to connect far more easily with practitioners and experts in other jurisdictions. So, for example, we were really lucky to talk to an education leader from New Orleans earlier in the year about how they rebuilt education post Hurricane Katrina, because that seemed like a sort of similar and relevant way of thinking about how we tackle, you know, rebuilding and recovery after the pandemic. So we want to be exploiting those international opportunities. Also, what we want to do within the network of excellence, as I say, is ensure that we are harvesting and sharing those great ideas and practices that are already existing in schools. And one of the key ways that we do that is by facilitating sharing leading practice events. And these are events where schools within the network who have had an area of excellence accredited through a quality assurance review, which I'll come on to in a minute, put on a digital event in the first instance where they share that practice, give other school leaders the chance to understand a bit about what they've done, the impact that it's had, and, you know, to share some of the key policies and approaches that they've used, so others can think about, can I implement that in my school? Will it benefit me? And then what we're hoping next year, if we can all continue to travel, is that if you've seen some really great practice on one of those digital events, you might follow up with a visit to the school and have an immersive day with them, really getting under the skin of that practice. Another innovation that we've had this year has been around having masterclasses. So over the course of the year, where we've identified live or strategically significant topics, we've brought together leaders just on a Zoom for an hour or two to hear for some really great speakers. So, for example, we had one yesterday on decolonising the curriculum with Angie Brown, which was absolutely fantastic. We've had other events on how to develop and deliver great CPD within your school for your staff from the Teacher Development Trust, a whole range of things across the year that those in our network of excellence can drop into from the comfort of their own offices. Similarly, we like to bring the whole network together a couple of times over the course of the year through national network meetings. Those are slightly longer meetings where there will typically be a couple of expert speakers sharing some new ideas, some new research, some kind of provocation. We've had some really interesting speakers. As I say, we've had Jay Altman from New Orleans. We've had Alistair Campbell talking about mental health alongside Fiona Miller, his wife, sharing some of their experiences of managing mental health. We have had Anne-Marie Canning talking about the lessons that can be drawn from the opportunity areas, and she leads the one in Doncaster. So all sorts of kind of stimulus in those national network meetings, but also the chance to reflect on what you hear in small groups with colleagues from across the network, as well as opportunities to hear from them about the things that they're doing in their schools, to share what you're doing in your schools. In addition to that, there's a whole range of resources that are available exclusively to those in our network of excellence. That includes, we have packaged up a program that we used to run through local hubs into something that's now available online, Excellence for Everyone, which is about breaking the link between poverty and poor outcomes. So there's a whole digital toolkit there that you can just download, use for staff CPD. There are tools that you can use. It synthesizes EEF research so that you can design initiatives and strategies within your school to tackle that disadvantage gap. And so there are a whole range of things like that on the website, things that have been provided by our partner schools, blogs, all of those sorts of things, as well as a school support directory, which gives you an introduction to other schools in the network and particularly highlights where they have areas of strength in case you want to reach out to any of those to find out more about what they're doing that may be of interest and relevance to any improvements that you want to make in your own schools. And then there's obviously a regular newsletter that kind of pulls all of those things together and signposts the very many things that we have going on across the network. So as I say, regardless of whether you join us as a full partner or a network partner, you have access to all of those things that help us to bring together the expertise that we have across our national network of excellence. So if I go on now to talk about some of the elements that are part of the full partnership offer, I think one of the things that Challenge Partners has historically been very well known for, although it's not the only thing we do, it has been that annual quality assurance review that schools in the network of excellence participate in. And last year we innovated with a virtual leadership quality assurance review, which has been so successful and popular that we're going to retain that. And those on full partnership can choose whether they have an in-person review or a virtual review in the coming years. And hopefully they will get to choose, and it won't be the government kind of guidelines that are dictating the choice that they have to make, which has been, of course, the case for much of this year. But those reviews, they occur annually, as I said, over 3 days, and they are conducted by a team of heads and senior leaders from outside of your local hub who will come in and review your school. They will be led by an expert lead reviewer, and all of our lead reviewers are Ofsted trained. Many of them are still serving Ofsted inspectors, but we ask them to leave their Ofsted badge and Ofsted hat at the door because they're not there to make a judgment about your school. their role is to bring the expertise that they've gained as an inspector to ensure that the evaluation of your school that is conducted by that external team of peers and also leaders within your own school working together is rigorous, robust, based on evidence, and all of those things that make for kind of very strong evaluation. But as I say, it's not the job of the lead reviewer to be making judgments. So what they're doing is making sure that the school that's being reviewed is getting a really robust evaluation, and also that those reviewers that are involved in the process are getting really great CPD, because they are being coached in those skills of evaluation by somebody who is, sort of through the nature of their work, really expert in doing that. So it's really important that there are benefits both for the school that's being reviewed and for those who are going out on reviews. And as part of the quality assurance review programme, you will have leaders from within your school, including yourselves, trained to go out and conduct those reviews and to benefit from that CPD. And many of the schools that have been with us, particularly for a number of years, say it's that opportunity to go out and review other schools that is really powerful and valuable for them, because there's no CPD quite like it. And obviously it's a great opportunity to get under the skin of another school, to bring back ideas, as well as to develop some key leadership qualities, including potentially having to give some quite challenging feedback to another school team, done always in a kind of supportive and developmental way. But as I say, we don't want people to be shying away from having those really robust conversations in the interests of children where that's needed. So as it says there, those reviews provide a really rigorous peer evaluation of provision and outcomes, focusing on all pupils and then separately on disadvantaged pupils, because we think that they kind of deserve that laser sharp focus on the extent to which the school is meeting their needs. The reviews also look at leadership at all levels, so that's right down right from governors down to emerging leaders, and it particularly gives those middle leaders, who we know when Ofsted do come knocking tend to be a bit more in the firing line these days to explain their approach to curriculum. It gives them a really good opportunity to talk about the approach they're taking, the impact that it's having, and to get some feedback from some friendly peers and colleagues around that. Also, over the course of this year, we've added in an additional focus around schools' approaches to recovery and remote learning, and we think that those will remain part of the framework over the coming year, because potentially remote learning is going to remain a feature of the landscape, even if it's not required by bubble closures and lockdowns. I think lots of schools are thinking about blended strategies, and similarly, recovery isn't going to happen overnight. That's going to be a long-term plan. So looking at how schools are approaching those things will also be a key part of the reviews in the coming years. But we do keep innovating that framework for reviews to make sure that it remains relevant to schools and to the context that they face. It is not intended to be a mock STED. It does, we realise that if it was completely out of step with the things that Ofsted are interested in, it would be less helpful to schools, but we don't try and replicate the things that an Ofsted inspection does. And particularly, we have a much sharper focus on pedagogy, because actually how you teach is kind of a key thing about how you get that great curriculum you've designed and sequenced into children's heads. So we think that pedagogy is a really good thing to continuing to focus on, in addition to leadership and those other things that I've mentioned. But we don't look at things like safeguarding or behaviour and attendance or any of those things, except in as much as they have an impact on outcomes for children, because obviously if they're not there, they can't be learning. As it says there, all the review activities are joint and the outputs are agreed with the school. So it's very much a done with rather than done to process. And a great CPD opportunity, both for leaders from the host school and those from visiting schools, to have that opportunity as I've said. In addition, I've mentioned that we have these sharing leading practice events. That leading practice is identified through these quality assurance reviews. So there's some real rigor behind what we're sharing as excellence within the network. And schools where they have a really strong area of practice can put that forward to be accredited as an area of excellence as part of their review process. So that kind of gives you an overview, and very much the approach that we take is underpinned by those principles of effective school-to-school peer review, which were captured in an NAHT document a couple of years ago now. I've already said I quite like a visual, so this is just sort of visually how we represent that peer review process. So you'll see on the left-hand side there, you know, the team of lead reviewers and senior leaders drawn from across the partnership. That's who will come and visit your school. The only time they tend to spend on their own is on the first afternoon. So the review starts either at Monday lunchtime or Wednesday lunchtime, and goes to either Wednesday lunchtime or Friday lunchtime. And that first afternoon, the reviewers spend looking at your key documentation, which is really great feedback that you can get on how that comes across to the uninitiated, people who haven't been steeped in it as you have, and identifying what are some of the questions that they want to explore through the course of the review. So they do that on their own with the lead reviewer on the first afternoon. But then all of the other activities that are conducted, so that might be learning explorations going into lessons, book reviews, interviewing middle leaders, interviewing governors, talking to parents, talking to groups of students, you know, whatever you agree with the lead reviewer is the best way to explore and get to know your school. All of those activities are conducted in pairs, with one of the external reviewers working alongside one of the leaders from your school. And we think that's really important, so that at the end of the review, you recognise the report because you've seen the same things as the review team have had. So it's not about, you know, the review team going around with a clipboard and, you know, writing notes that you can't see. It would be, for example, if a lesson observation was on the agenda, that one of the external reviewers would go into that lesson with one of your leaders. They would maybe spend 20 minutes or so in the lesson together. And what we provide in our handbook is a framework for them after that to have a conversation about what they've seen. So, you know, what was the level of challenge like? What was the level of engagement like? How was the questioning? And to have a really structured discussion that captures what were some of the great things about that lesson, what maybe could have been a bit better, and to come to a joint view about that and capture that. And of course, what that's then triangulated with are all the other pairs of reviewers who've been going out around the school, and that enables a picture to be built that says, is what we saw in that lesson typical of this school, or actually is it just to do with that particular teacher? And that kind of enables that evidence building to be to happen, but done, you know, hand in hand with the host school. So that one team of two parts, as it says at the bottom there. Then, you know, by lunchtime on the third day, that is all pulled together into some summary feedback. It's a very rich, about an hour's discussion that happens at the end of the review, where the team talk together with the host school team about things that are going well in the school, things that could be improved, and if there's an area of excellence there. And then the lead reviewer's final job is to write that up in a report that is sent to the school. It's only sent to the school, it's not sent to any of the peer reviewers, because it's really important to us that that report belongs to the school, and you choose what you do with that. You know, typically schools do share it with their governors. We will ask that you share it with at least the senior partner and hub manager in your hub, and I'll come on to them later so that they can support you. But, you know, it's absolutely yours to do with what you wish. And we think that's really important because we know that the schools that get most out of the review process are the ones that show themselves warts and all and don't put on a show, but actually say, you know, this is something that we're finding really difficult. Can you come in and give us some extra eyes on this? Or this is a new strategy that we're trying to implement. It would be really good to get some early feedback. So we don't want the report to be public in a way that inhibits schools from thinking that they can reveal whatever they want to about themselves over the course of the review. The final thing I'll say on peer review, and then I will pause to see if there are any questions, not least because I've done a lot of talking and need a drink, only water, I should say, at this time of the day. The peer review is only a comma in an ongoing school improvement dialogue. So, you know, the review is powerful CPD and an improvement tool in itself, but actually it's what you do with the report and the findings from that that really matter, of course. And so what we encourage you to do, as I say, is to share, you know, if not the report itself, then the outcomes of your review with other schools that are in your hub, because you can then see if any of them have got strengths in areas that you're finding difficult, that you could benefit from. Or actually, if it's something that you're all finding difficult on, you might decide to do a joint practice project on that. So you can get that support from your local hub. You can also draw on that whole national network of excellence, because we know that sometimes, you know, local politics and dynamics mean that you might not want to share or ask from things locally. And there is, as we say, that whole national network to draw on. You know, the school support directory will enable you to identify other schools elsewhere who can help you. The central team can also help with that matchmaking. You can attend one of those sharing leading practice events, join a masterclass, all of those things that we've talked to that are part of our national network of excellence. And the thing on there that I haven't mentioned yet is that there's an online forum that you can also use to just say, I've got a problem with this. Can anybody help me? Has anybody had a similar experience? So just let me pause there before I go on to other aspects of the full partnership offer, just to see if there are any questions about anything so far. And also to welcome Simon and Tim, who slipped in some point after I'd started. I can't see everybody down the side of my screen, but it's lovely to see you both.
Apologies for being late. That was, I guess, the joys of working in the school, isn't it? Never be on time.
Absolutely.
I apologise. That was all very clear though, so thank you.
Great. Okay for you so far, Tim?
Yeah, great. So yeah, apologies also, but yeah, I got called out. I had to go and help a little chap. So yeah.
Not a problem at all. We understand.
So I don't know. I mean, I missed the first 15 minutes, unfortunately. I don't know if there's anything at the end. Maybe somebody could just give me a little bit of a catch up with it. It would be great.
Yeah, really happy to do that.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Is it possible to do, to work with my deputy head or assistant heads in doing any? Can we go together to do these reviews?
So usually what we do is encourage schools to send out their trained reviewers to different schools, just to maximise the number of other schools that you can see and have ideas come back from. We will occasionally make an exception to that. I guess the other thing is the practicality, of course, about whether you could have two of you out of school for 3 days. Who'd be in charge? Leave the kids; they'll probably be fine. But yeah, that is an option, because I think there is sometimes something quite powerful, isn't there, about both seeing the same thing together and the conversation that you have on the way there and on the way back. As I say, it's not typically the way that we schedule things, but that doesn't mean that we can't and we won't.
And just to add on that, Kate, although the reviews work exactly as you described, our sharing leading practice in-person events do tend to be in pairs. So that can be an opportunity to a reflection as well. And you might find it helpful to, when it comes to the QA reviewer training, all attend as an SLT group, depending on how many reviewers that you'll ultimately be sending out to go on reviews. So yeah, couple of points there.
Yeah, it's really nice to do it in pairs, isn't it? You just get so much more from it, I think, when you work with somebody else and you pick up more things to discuss, don't you?
Yeah.
How far down the senior leadership chain does it go, people in joining these reviews?
So we think about it as sort of assistant head and above, and obviously we recognise that different schools have slightly different leadership structures and don't all call their leaders the same things, but that's about the level that we're thinking of. And what we're always trying to balance is the kind of quality of experience of the host school and that opportunity for as many leaders as possible to benefit from the CPD that's offered. One of the questions that we have been asked is around, can middle leaders get involved? And our thought so far is not to go out as reviewers, but actually, to have a much greater role when your own school is being reviewed. That's the real moment for kind of those middle leaders to step forward and present some of the key strategies that they're leading, and to kind of engage in those dialogues with the external review team. One thing I will say is that we're also piloting a middle leader quality assurance review program, which would be focusing on kind of specific subjects or phases using the same methodology, and very much putting middle leaders in the driving seat, because we think that there is valuable CPD in this for them as well. We're always innovating.
And just a quick thing to add, that it would tend to be appropriate. We do have a lot of Senkos that go on the training and go on reviews, because their roles often have a whole school remit. Well, very regularly have a whole school remit, and they would sit on senior leadership team alongside deputies and assistants.
So thanks, Johnny. And I think the other principle just to draw out here is that the success of the quality assurance review programme depends on reciprocity within the network. We provide the training, the framework, do all of the arranging of the quality assurance reviews, but they are dependent on schools releasing leaders to go and review other schools, as well as welcoming them into their own school. So the number of reviewers that you will have visit your school is determined by the size of your school, and you're expected to send out over the course of the year the same number of leaders to conduct reviews in other schools as you will receive in your own school. So I think most of you here today are from primary schools, so you would typically be looking at about 2 or 3 of you being trained and going out from a primary school, typically more from a secondary school.
That's
Tim,
another question.
Do you have another question?
Do you do sort of partial reviews over the year, or is it always just an annual 3-day big hit? Do you do sort of like smaller ones?
We don't organise those centrally. I think sometimes within hubs they will use kind of similar methodology to focus in on things that they want to look specifically at within schools. But yes, from the kind of point of view of the subscription, it's that annual kind of significant 3-day review that's part of the membership. So just going on to talk about some of the other school improvement programmes that are part of our full partnership. You have the choice as a full partner as to whether you want to participate in the quality assurance review programme. And as I say, you could have either an in-person or a virtual review, depending on what suited you. There are a couple of other alternatives that you have if you didn't want to participate in the quality assurance review programme. And one of those is Growing the Top Standout Schools, which is a programme for schools that are typically already Ofsted outstanding and are looking to push the boundaries of already excellent performance. So you'll see again, I've got my upwards convergence graph on the right here. This is really for the schools that are along the top line there. So there's really high performing schools looking to continue to develop further. And as I said, what we know is that those schools are often quite neglected, I think, within the system. They're expected to support other schools, but don't necessarily get a lot of support for further improvement themselves. And we know that the schools that have been involved so far, we piloted in 18-19 and have run a couple of cohorts since then, have really valued having a bit of space to think about their own development, as well as the way that they support other schools within the system. So how that programme works is that the schools that participate have very in-depth onboarding calls with us, so we can find out what are the things that they're already very successful at and what are the things that they're looking to improve to move them further on their improvement journey. And based on that, we match them into trios of schools where there are kind of complementary areas of strength and development, to spend some time with facilitated visits in each other's schools, which is a day of two halves, really. And the first half of the day is the school sharing their areas of excellence, the things that they think that make them successful, so that the other schools in the trio can learn from those. And what we find is they typically kind of will go back and start implementing something the following day from what they've seen there. But then in the afternoon, it flips and the school says, and this is the thing that we're finding a bit difficult, that we want to kind of really make some progress with to move us forward. And they use the visiting leaders to provide their expertise and insight to enable them to think through what they might do next to improve. And again, you know, depending on the areas of excellence and systemic challenges, that will determine the programme of what happens over the course of the day in terms of what lessons are visited, who within the school is spoken to, and that's all agreed with the facilitator, who just makes sure that the day runs smoothly and people stay on task. Although far be it from me to suggest that if you just left a group of leaders in a room that they would go off task, but there's a sort of facilitator to provide some rigour to that. There are also moments where the whole cohort on that programme, and typically there are between 21 and 30 schools involved in that programme, and they are brought together a number of times over the course of the year as a whole cohort to get some stimulus and input from experts and from other sectors, you know, for example, HE, independent schools and business, just to stimulate their thinking a bit further. And as we develop that international dimension to the work at Challenge Partners, we will increasingly want to be having stimulus from abroad as well. Interestingly, although it was a couple of years ago now, the stimulus that most stuck in my mind was that we had the people director of Nando's come and talk to us about the way that they approach talent management. And it was fascinating. I've never been to Nando's because I'm vegetarian, but apparently it's not about the chicken, it's about the people who make the chicken. And you know, the fact that I can remember that 2 years on will kind of give you a sense that it was a very powerful story that the people director talked about, how they recruited, inducted, spotted talent, continue to develop. And, you know, although obviously it's a completely different industry, those are all challenges that school leaders are facing, you know, every day. So lots of interest and read across in that. But we've had a whole range of really interesting and powerful speakers there. And as it says at the bottom there, there's the option to take part in growing the top, either instead of having a quality assurance review, or if you wanted to do both, that's possible for an additional small fee. I said at the start that innovation is one of our 6 values, but that we're very interested in disciplined innovation. I've also mentioned that I was a civil servant in the DFE, and I think there is a strong contrast in that we, you know, evaluate things through independent evaluators. We publish that evaluation on our website, and also if something doesn't work, we stop it rather than just sort of doing some evaluation and carrying on regardless. But that evaluation that we had of our pilot programme of Growing the Top by Dr. Peter Matthews of the IOE and Roisin was said that the programme was really successful in facilitating knowledge transfer, where schools were able to share and adapt each other's successful strategies. It created an effective learning network, so those schools have very much stayed in touch. And again, you know, to your point, Tim, although it was the senior leaders who were involved in that programme, and that programme does have pairs of leaders going out, so it's typically the head and a deputy who go on those trio visits and to the whole cohort days. What we were finding was that the schools were, of their own initiative, then connecting their middle leaders to go and see what others in the trio were doing, and, you know, fostering all sorts of different connections to create that learning network. And it was also successful in tackling difficult issues and systemic challenges. So it probably won't surprise you to know that a common challenge that was coming up was around the disadvantage gap. But through the sharing of strategies, what we saw was some kind of really powerful figures from some of the schools involved, who were quite quickly able to make an impact on outcomes for disadvantaged children. And that's all captured in the Growing the Top evaluation report, which is available on our website. The other programme that's part of the full partnership offer, which I will only touch on briefly because we're not making this available to schools joining us for the first time next year, but I think is interesting for you to know about if you're thinking about, you know, becoming part of Challenge Partners for a number of years, is that the next kind of group of schools that we've had demand from within our network to have a programme around is those schools who are on the cusp of excellence. So they might be schools that were outstanding quite a number of years ago and thinking about how they sustain that, or schools that have been stubbornly good and want to tip over into real excellence. And so this programme, I said at the start, we're very much a practitioner-led organisation, is a programme that we're developing with a group of our practitioners based on the successful principles of the Growing the Top programme and some other programmes that we've run over the years, and is intended again to bring schools at that similar stage together in trios to work together, but not just learning from each other and providing that consultancy to each other, but to engage in a joint project across the schools within the trio where they've got a similar focus in some joint practice development. So they're not having to come up with the solutions themselves, but can co-create those solutions. And again, there's that sort of emphasis on input from outside, so researchers, other sectors, and so on. As I say, if you're joining us for the first time in 21-22, that won't be available, but we're piloting it with some of our existing schools, so it will be available from 22-23 onwards, assuming that it's evaluated successfully, of course, otherwise we won't continue with it. And, you know, I think one of the great things about the approaches that we have in Challenge Partners is that they can be applied to all sorts of problems within the education sector or challenges that schools are facing. So we are continuing to innovate and provide kind of bespoke programs based on that tried and tested methodology that we've developed over the last decade or so. The final kind of component of full partnership in Challenge Partners is, as I mentioned before, being part of a local hub. And pictured on the screen here, you've got our Aspire hub, which is based around Knowsley in the northwest, at a kickoff meeting that they had when they launched their hub in September 2019, when people could all still get together in people and stand in person and stand quite close to each other. But the purpose of a hub is to bring together a group of schools locally, because place matters for some of the things that you want to do, and to work together as a hub to tackle some of the common challenges that you face. So a proportion of the fee that you pay when you join Challenge Partners is returned to the hub to provide a pot of money to enable activities to happen based on an action plan that you agree jointly. Those hubs are led by a senior partner who is typically the head teacher of a high-performing school. It might be a trust CEO or somebody appropriate within a trust sometimes who leads those hubs. And they're supported by a hub manager who's typically a deputy head who makes it happen, does the thing that deputy heads do really well. So the senior partner has the vision and leads the hub, but the hub manager makes it all happen. Quite often those local hubs will develop their own local CPD offer. What they've spent hub funding on typically will be things like using some of the Excellence for Everyone resources that I've mentioned to have that focus on disadvantage, to provide training for middle leaders, to bring in inspiring speakers, to facilitate release time for subject networks to come together across the hub. There's a whole range of things, and we don't specify any of that from the centre because we know that the schools that are involved in the local hub are best placed to determine what their priorities are and how to spend that money. So we provide a framework, we support the development of the senior partners and hub managers. We've got a range of tools to do that. And they also have a dedicated central team link, but other than that, it's up to the hub to make the most of that opportunity. And like everything with challenge partners, you kind of get out of it what you put into it, really. And then in areas where we don't currently have local hubs and we don't have sufficient schools to establish a hub in an area, an alternative option is to join one of our regional head teachers networks. And these tend to encompass broader areas than our local hubs, but provide a space for head teachers within a region who are leading similar schools to come together a number of times over the course of the year with some facilitated visits and discussions in each other's schools to explore those different approaches to the leadership of school improvement, to take ideas from other schools, to engage in joint practice development. So to provide some of the benefits that you would otherwise get in a hub in a different way. So those are available, as I say, where there aren't local hubs for schools to be able to join. It might be as well that you would be interested in being part of a regional head teachers network, even if there is a hub available to join. And again, that's possible for a small additional fee. So before I come on to the next slide, which kind of goes into some of the more practical things around pricing and next steps, is there any questions on those other programs that I've talked about? So growing the top, extending leading practice, or that kind of bit of local or regional collaboration that happens through local hubs or regional head teacher networks?
I've got another question. The regional head teacher networks, did you say they pair people with similar schools?
Yes, that's right. So in September 2019, Challenge Partners acquired a small group of regional networks that were called Jubilee networks, if you've heard of those. And what we've adopted here is the methodology of Jubilee networks. And what they found worked quite successfully was having schools, head teachers of schools that were from the same phase and the schools were of a similar size, just because that kind of, there was that foundation of similarity there, which didn't necessarily mean that the challenges were all the same, because obviously they were coming from different areas, but that provided a strong basis for collaboration within those networks. And that does contrast with the local hubs, which quite often cover all phases and, a range of schools within the local area.
It's you wouldn't separate people out through SATs or MATs or maintain. That's kind of irrelevant.
Yes. In fact, I haven't I've stopped talking about that. This used to be part of my presentation, but yes, we're a very broad church in having all school types represented within the network. And what we're keen to do is to facilitate collaboration that crosses any of those boundaries. And, you know, we're really delighted that we've got over 100 multi-academy trusts in Challenge Partners who are really willing to, you know, not just hoard knowledge and expertise within their own trust, but share it more broadly. And, you know, they want to be part of local hubs where they can engage with other schools locally. So, yeah, we don't differentiate on that basis, Tim.
Maybe you'll pick this up again, or maybe it's including what you said, but I'm interested in the CPD. That it seems to be that it's very much more, you know, the model is the networking and deciding on your own CPD in the local hubs. Is that right?
Yes, we tend not to provide training programs. You know, we won't be offering any MPQs or any of those sorts of things, but we do see that a large amount of CPD comes through engagement in those collaborative activities. And I'm not sure if you were here when I was saying that, you know, a bit of feedback that we get from senior leaders is that going out and reviewing other schools and seeing practice in other schools is some of the best CPD that they get. You know, and similarly, we do ensure that we're kind of getting input from expert speakers and evidence, you know, at a whole range of events that we run across the national network. But we don't package any of those things up as a sort of specific training program. It's CPD that people can take from it what they want. There will be sometimes more structured things within hubs. There are still a number of our hubs, I think, that collaborate together to run the Allevi, OTP and ITP programs, for example, so Outstanding Teacher Programme and Improving Teacher Programme. So typically, if there's more formal CPD, that tends to happen at the local level rather than at national. So great. So to pull all of that together again and to give you the information about pricing as well, which I know is an important consideration, what you can see there is a summary of that full partner subscription and network partner subscription. So within full partner, you get to be part of that national network of excellence as described, and then choose from one of those school improvement programs. So as new schools to the network, that would be the quality assurance review or virtual leadership quality assurance review, or if you're eligible for it, the Growing the Top programme. In addition to that, there's the local hub collaboration, a free ticket to our national conference, and also a discount from Impact Head, who do some really great work with schools around evaluating in-school initiatives and strategies. So there's a big discount on there. So that's the full partnership offer, which we think is where you will get the greatest benefit as part of Challenge Partners. And you can see on the right there what the prices are. And I think it's worth drawing out two things there. One is that there are multi-year discounts available if you subscribe for more than a year. And the other thing that happens if you subscribe for more than a year is that you lock in this year's prices, so aren't subject to any of the inflationary increases that we need to make from time to time. And a proportion of that funding goes back to your hub, as I've said, so you can benefit from that through that locally funded activity. If you're not yet ready to become a full partner where you can get those best benefits, the other option is to become a network partner. And the kind of key difference between the two subscriptions is that as a network partner, you don't participate in any of the school improvement programs. So you miss out on the quality assurance review or Growing the Top or Extending Leading Practice. but do get to benefit from being part of the National Network of Excellence and either a regional head teacher network or a local hub. And you can see there that that's priced at a lower fee of £3 per pupil on roll. And just as I know that there are a number of primaries here, to make you aware that that per pupil on roll goes from reception upwards, so doesn't include nursery children in there. That's how that is calculated. I will pause there just in case there are any questions on the composition and pricing of the subscriptions. Nope. Great.
I've got another one. What are those prices? What are the prices for the 2 and the 3 years?
So the discount, if you subscribe for 2 years, is a 4% per annum discount, and for 3 years it's a curious 4.66% per annum discount. Johnny could tell you the reason for that, but that's just what it is. So
it's an ungainly figure, but it's there for a good reason.
So those are the multi-year discounts, and as I say, that also locks in that £7.35 per pupil fee for the duration of the contract as well. Then on next steps, we very much hope that you will be excited by what you've heard this morning and want to become part of Challenge Partners, and we'll follow up with an email that's got the resources and information referenced today, and we will also provide you with a link to a unique subscription form for you to sign up. We'd encourage you to do that by the 30th of June because we begin scheduling quality assurance reviews straight away after the half term, and you're more likely to receive your preferred date for your quality assurance review the sooner you sign up, because you are given the choice of which half term you would like your review to happen in. The one thing that's worth noting is, as new schools, we would encourage you to have your review after you've had a chance to go out and review other schools, so you know a bit more about what to expect. And so typically you might want to have your review of your own school a little bit later in the year to allow that to happen. But of course, if there are pressing reasons why you want to review early on in the new academic year, that's absolutely something that we can discuss. If you wanted any more information about any of the specific programs that I've given you an overview of today, there are a set of events there that you can attend. We'll include information about that on the email as well. You do also have the opportunity to get involved now, just to get a bit of a feel for what Challenge Partners is like. So we do have some more Sharing Leading Practice webinars coming up after half term, and if you go to the events section of our website, you'll be able to see what those are. You can sign up and take part in those for free. You can also look at the extensive archive that we've got there of previous Sharing Leading Practice events, so you can take a look at any of those. You have a dig around on our website, as is indicated here. There's quite a lot that you can look into that will give you a flavour of the sort of things that our schools are sharing, the sort of events that we've been putting on, and you can get more information on that on our annual report, to which we'll also provide a link in the follow-up email. And then just to finish, I suppose, I really like this quote from Atul Gawande, who is a surgeon, who talks about better being possible. And that's definitely where we start from in Challenge Partners. We think, better is possible for every school and for every pupil, for every community that those schools are serving. And we really want to work with as many schools as we can to make that better happen, I suppose. And we don't think it takes genius, but it does take diligence and moral clarity, ingenuity and a willingness to try, and the schools that join Challenge Partners have all of those things in absolute abundance, and if you do too, then I really hope that you'll join us for next year.